and I would say, why don't you go? And like, well, at that time, and we're talking like the 80s, as an American, they'll kidnap you. So and I maybe made an exaggeration, but they would be really worried about kidnapping. So in my research on how they built their stage, there were so many kidnappings by Ndrangheta that La Stampa, Corriere della Sera, and the big magazines and newspapers would have sequester season and would actually list almost as like, hey guys, here's the kidnappings this week. Tell us a little bit about how kidnapping brought these guys to a global superpower.
Yeah, so first of all, because obviously I'm an academic, I need to clarify that what the perception and the narrative wasn't necessarily the reality of it. But I do understand that obviously the more you were away from a certain reality, the more certain narratives consolidated, and that is obviously the case. So the period of the kidnapping is extremely complicated by two things. First thing, the lack of reliable data, and second thing, the fact that most of the kidnapping ended in a secret manner. We are talking here about over 200 kidnappings in the space of who knows. Some say 15 years, some say 10. Some kidnappings might have been attributed to the Ndrangheta, but weren't. Some others might have been carried out by the Ndrangheta, but they weren't counted. So who knows? So we are ranging between 200 and 2050, which is a very big diversion. And obviously the fact that the first one is attributed to, well, the first kidnapping was the one of Paul Getty III, doesn't help the imagery of the Americans kidnapped around here. So the kidnappings were a choice that was made. The kidnapping industry was a choice that was made by a number of clans, not all clans, but the more visionary ones, the ones that decided all of a sudden that they didn't want to be stuck into the local extortion rackets, kind of like scrambling for peanuts, but they wanted to invest in drugs, and investing in drugs require money. Now, investing in drugs obviously requires connections. Some of these people had the right connections at the time with the Cosa Nostra, and obviously they were serving already Cosa Nostra routes for heroin and cannabis. So the idea was, okay, let's try and grow up a little bit, and let's try and think ahead. And it wasn't the majority that wanted this. As I said, the Ndrangheta, as every mafia, is a traditional force, so they are a conservative force. But the newcomers, which were namely the Plati original clans, ventured into this. And they ventured into this with some sort of safety net. The safety net was that if we bring random people into the Aspromonte mountain where they were, their knowledge of the Aspromonte mountain is such that basically no one will ever find them here. Because the Aspromonte is a very difficult place, geographically speaking, is a beautiful, fantastic, amazing place, precisely because it's very difficult to navigate. So bringing people to the Aspromonte meant two things. A, difficult to find, meaning a little bit of leverage, leeway into how you handle it. But more importantly, we can involve our own families, our own villages into the kidnapping industry. So it wasn't only a problem of where do you keep the kidnapped victim, which could be a natural cave in the mountain, but how do we feed them? How do we give them blankets? How do we make sure that if they are sick, they don't die in here without us getting any money? So the whole issue was more than just kidnapping people. It was about an industry, as we said, which involved a number of other external people, which either for denial or for oppression offer their support to the clans. So the kidnapping season, as we call them, la stagione dei rapimenti, is a season of accumulation of capital, is accumulation of wealth in the easiest way we can think of it. We need cash, we need untraceable cash. How do we get cash? Easy. So that was something that, by the way, it wasn't Ndrangheta's idea. It was a period where others were committing kidnaps. Sicily, was among the regions with the highest number of kidnappings, more or less attributed to Cosa Nostra. Sardinia had the so-called Anonima Sequestri, the anonymous kidnappers, which was another organization less problematic than the Ndrangheta in certain ways, less organized, but still quite violent in the way. So kidnappings at that time was a clear vulnerability of the Italian state, where it was difficult to trace money, to trace ransom, and obviously that had to change. But definitely accumulation of capital, definitely this brought certain clans onto the map way more than others.
Yeah. So in the interest of time, so to build the base, they did a whole bunch of kidnappings, as you said. I like how you say kidnapping and visionary in the same sentence. Just for us normal people, that's crazy. But when you think in terms of Ndrangheta, it makes sense. So they basically took the money from the kidnapping. And interesting enough, in the Getty case, the amount that they aligned to was based off of how much he can give and still write off on his taxes. Not a lot of people know that. It's 130,000 or whatever. They wanted 300,000, they gave 130,000, and he just wrote whatever he can max write off on his taxes, which I think is insane when it comes to your grandson. But that's another discussion. Now, gentlemen like Antonio Pelle and others, right? Now they took this money, and don't get me wrong, they still do hashish, they still do heroin. But one thing they did genius, and I don't like to use this